Waiting. Hello, everybody. The reason I'm late is because I got knocked off again. Isn't that nice? And I'm just wanting you to know that we may have this problem between myself and the Irish granny. We may be back and forth, but we're going to try it anyway, right? So welcome to my show. I'm so glad you decided to say yes. I'm thrilled, actually.
Oh, I'm
I
honored to
am.
be invited. I'm
Oh,
truly
well.
honored to be invited.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a lot of people who really admire you and like your
Oh,
storytelling. I mean, I watched several of your shows in the last week. One of them that I watched was the Edgar Casey because I love Edgar Casey.
yeah.
And you did, I mean, you told the story and you then did the reading and everything, and it was great. Hi, Ron. Hi, everybody in the chat. Thanks, everybody, for being here. But then I started to listen to your Tarot of the Trolls.
That was so much fun. And then it evolved.
Oh,
I was joking. When I started, it was a joke. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, there's a message here.
oh,
And it became serious. I was totally this tongue in cheek at the beginning. I was
right.
just being my mother, but
Yeah.
children need to knock that out. And then
Huh?
as I did it, the cards started telling a story. And what can you do?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing because soon after that, Susan Lynn and Jen had a show and they were trolled really badly. They were trolled with bots, actually, that were putting up things like the F word and then calling derogatory names and all kinds of stuff. And they finally got their way out of that. And now there's been several others who said the same thing has happened to them. That,
I
they,
don't really understand why anybody, I'm not being judgmental and critical,
I
just,
know.
putting
Yep.
it into perspective. I've raised 5 kids. A troll is nothing. All you
Right.
have to do is just hit block and
Right.
report. Who cares? Don't read them, dismiss
Yep.
them, and move
But
on.
these were bots and they came boom, 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 like 50 all at once. So I slowed the chat down. They suggested we slow the chat down and that you can catch them faster or whatever. But,
Well, see, I can't see the chat because I'm on an iPad,
oh,
and
okay.
I don't know how to do 99% of the things you're supposed to
It's
do on the
okay.
computer anyway. So it's a futile attempt to insult me or hurt my feelings because I'm oblivious. So
Well, but I love it that you said, if you don't believe in the tarot, then what are you on here for listening to
well,
this for?
yeah, I think isn't that a sin? If you really believe it's an evil
Yeah,
tool of the devil, what the
right.
hell are you doing in the first
Uh-huh.
place?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Uh-huh. Well, one of the in the subscribers, she said she was Gma number 5. She said she was watching your video of Trump leaving Walter Reed when she got this
Oh.
notification that we were going to be on here talking. So,
Oh yeah, that was a question from one of my viewers. Why did
mm,
he leave so precipitously? He just
right.
well, we all know
Yeah,
what happened.
we all
So,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But wow. Anyway, thank you, Sherry. That's very nice. I got a new haircut, so but it's kind of
Oh,
like it
very
just
good.
needs to be. It's so fine. I guess
Yeah.
you got rid of that problem. You decided to just take it right
Well,
down.
I'll tell you, I have very long, very thick red hair.
Oh, okay.
And as I've been getting older, I've been touching it, dyeing
Yeah.
it all kinds of crazy colors and
Uh huh.
but with the lockdown, nobody could go get their hair done.
Right.
And I
Right.
got really tired of listening to acquaintances and neighbors complaining that they couldn't go get their roots done when people are dying. And
I
so
know. I know.
I have a tendency, my mother always said, to cut my nose off to spite my face.
Right.
So I just said, hair, you're worried about your hair. I'll show you hair. And I got the dog clippers out and I just did it.
Oh my
And
God. Good for you.
here's the secret that men have been hiding for years. It's empowering.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Totally easy. I could not believe how I thought I'd be embarrassed. I feel so empowered. And cheap. It costs zero,
I know.
and no
Yeah.
time. And I'm
Uh-huh.
not a high maintenance kind of girl, you know. I didn't
Uh-huh.
straighten and curl, but I'm still surprised at how much emotional time and effort women spend on their
Yeah.
hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
it was
understand. Yeah.
liberating, absolutely
Yes.
liberating. I'll probably never grow it back.
Well, growing up in the 60s and the 70s, women used to do all this kind of stuff. And I always thought, oh, they're so brave. They're so brave. And I mean, I don't even wear makeup. I don't like worrying about all that stuff. And I am who I am, and I'm old, and that's the way it is.
Well, I've started to do more makeup since I did this channel than I have ever done in my life because I
Okay.
have that glow in the dark white Irish complexion. And if I don't try something, I blend in with the paint in the background, you know. But
Uh-huh.
but yeah, who can be
Yeah.
bothered?
Eh.
At some point here in this conversation, I'm going to do this and I'll have a black streak.
Well, with me, if I end up putting a little lipstick on, I end up going like way up here, and I feel like, Phyllis Diller, so I have to be very
Oh yeah,
careful.
yeah, yeah. One day I did a whole 40-minute video with red lipstick all over my teeth. So
Well, they still
that's
love you. They
it's a
still
it's
love
a
you.
lesson from somebody to be humble. So,
So I've got a suggestion for you. You know how you do the tarot of this, the tarot. I want you to do the tarot of the tarot.
oh, wouldn't that be interesting?
Yes.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
do
good,
that.
good.
Okay.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I just thought that would be really cool because there are a lot of stories about it, and how they had to. The reason that they did it was so that they could communicate messages to people of that time because otherwise you'd be considered a witch or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know there's lots of different stories that are surrounding how the way that tarot tells a story of where we are in life and all that stuff. But I'm not a very big tarot. I don't do tarot. I do mostly oracles because I can't remember all the stuff I'm supposed to remember.
Well, that's
So,
why I read them the way I read them because I do try to. I mean, I learned from watching YouTube. It was just a little
yep.
hobby I took up during the pandemic. And so I really haven't applied myself. I think I'm all by myself. I haven't applied myself the way a good student would. And I try very hard every time I hear something new in the way of defining a card. I try to remember it. But the older you get, the harder it is to retain that stuff. And I don't learn visually, I learn by writing. That refreshes my memory for me, it implants it in my brain. So it's been a challenge to remember things just by looking at the pictures on the card. So I think she's frozen. I would offer her a hot drink, but I don't know. Oh dear. I could do a card reading just so people are not staring at the screen. Why don't I do the tarot of tarot? And then she'll have to, yeah. I guess I've just become the star here. Okay, I'm gonna read the cards and I'm going to ask what they can tell me about themselves. What is it about tarot? What can we learn about tarot just so that it's a better tool? What's the energy around tarot cards that we should know about them? Because I got a troll telling me it was the tool of the devil. Okay. I don't see a real story coming out here at all. This is the most disjointed reading I've seen in a really long time, but let me make something out of this here. So at the heart of it all, oh, I get the Four of Cups. And one of the interpretations, these are the Rider-Waite cards with keywords, and I love them because they're like cliff notes. They jog your memory, which I really, really need as a beginning tarot reader. And reversed, this card can mean a lack of imagination. And I think what it's saying is that, first of all, to reject something like that is to narrow your worldview. To accept it means that the cards provide an opportunity to expand your view, your opinion, or your understanding of a situation. And crossed by the Eight of Wands reversed is about frustration. So I think that one of the first things this is saying is that they present an expansion of your worldview and your imagination in a situation where you're frustrated or you have questions about what's going on. It gives you a broader view. And over it all, crowning it in the sky, I have to think here, which is always a challenge. Crowning it is the notion of needing help, like not receiving the help that you need. So people turn to the tarot when they need advice, when they need help, when they just need a broader view of what's going on. I decided to read on the cards while you were
Good.
you were.
Thank you. You're a good girl. Yep.
Okay. About halfway through here, we're doing the Tarot of Tarot. And
okay. All right.
Very quickly, the tarot cards provide just a broader view. They expand your horizon. They give you a different perspective when you're feeling frustrated and you need an answer. And if you're only seeing one side of a problem, if you're only getting a partial understanding, this provides more. And at the foundation of the reading, I get the Three of Wands, which is being unable to see the larger plan, being unable to see into the future, needing some perspective. That's the word that comes to mind. It's a new perspective. And in the past, we get this sense of what's the word I want? Negative emotion. So I think what this is doing, it's establishing a situation where you're going to turn to a tarot card for advice. You're not, you're cynical, you're unhappy, you're moody, you're feeling deprived of some emotion or some sort of guidance, and you need a direction to be set in. And in the near future, we get a return to harmony, a return to balance, a sense of an even keel. So the story so far is that the tarot cards are a tool for when you're confused or a problem is really blocking you and you've got a lot of negative emotions around a situation. It can give you clarity. And this is so interesting. They're karmic. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Really important.
Yeah.
Very important. They're about life cycles and karma and transition. And in this case, I think the word transition is the word that jumps out at me. That you're stuck in a situation, confused, blocked, frustrated, and the cards help you to move beyond that. It's a transition, and they help you to move with speed, because if you pay attention to them, you get that clarity. You get that sense of moving forward. And the advice that they always give you is not to give up, not to feel that any situation is insurmountable, because none of it is insurmountable. All of it is a lesson. And what do we come to as a final point? We arrive at our final point. What's the word I want?
The destination, or
thank you. The destination is that there.
No problem.
I have old timers.
Me too.
But in a challenge, in a situation that's a challenge, they're a teacher. So
definitely.
That's my quick read on it.
Love that, Helen. Thank you. That is great. And I wonder of the people that are here in the chat, how comfortable you feel about reading for yourself. Because I know that a lot of people feel like I don't know how to explain it. If, like, for instance, before I knew what the death card really meant, I thought it was definitely that I'm going to die or whatever. And so I felt I didn't want to.
I got bad news for you.
It's not right that moment. That's all. That's all. Yeah, I know. We're all in this game for only part of a quarter,
Yeah.
but yeah, but it's feeling that you can trust your own reading, that what you perceive to be what you're reading is like if somebody else does it, it seems like it's more believable. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
yes,
Or
yes.
yeah,
I have a lot of insecurity. I'm new to this. I'm self-taught. People thank me for what I'm reading, and I think, wow, this is a big responsibility because people do put a lot of weight in it. They
yeah.
trust you to be telling the truth and to know what you're talking about. A lot of times I have no idea. I mean, I shouldn't admit this. I have no idea. I just read the story I see in front of me.
Your
And
intuition tells you. That's what
well,
it
that's
is.
the
Yeah,
thing. That's
yeah.
the thing.
Hmm.
There's strong psychic traits in my family, which is why I
Yep.
was drawn to this to begin with.
Right.
All my
Yep.
life, I've been drawn to the paranormal, to the psychic. I
Okay.
mean, I
Yeah.
read the book about Edgar Cayce when I was in the 8th grade. So, you know,
My
that's just,
husband did too. Yeah, he did too. And he actually, his father was dying, and he had his father read Edgar Cayce because his father had
oh,
really bad emphysema, and he
mm,
left the planet with a bit more um,
hope.
understanding and hope. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
really did. It changed his life at the time. And so, well, when I first came on here, I didn't read. I wasn't psychic, but I've been studying all this fun stuff now since the 70s. And I thought, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to do? And you know what? It just unfolds. And that's what is happening to you. And I have
Yeah.
heard
Yeah.
from many people this, and Renee from the actually from the tarot love community, she adores you, and she said, I love this lady, please watch her, she's fabulous. And this was
Oh my
probably a couple
God.
months ago. Yeah.
Really?
And yes, and she said she tells a story and she uses books and she uses, and so I understood what she meant. She absolutely was
Oh,
right.
that's
Yes.
so
Yeah.
kind. I think I have
Huh?
something in my eye. That's just
It's okay.
so kind.
It's
I
okay.
don't
We
expect
need,
that kind of
yeah.
response, you know.
I know. And I do understand what you mean about giving comments out that could be either misstrued or, you don't want to
Yeah.
make anybody feel bad or whatever. But when I work with Susan Lynn now and on our Sunday show, and I have become able to do some mediumship, some psychic stuff, I'm still learning. But, somebody asked a question about the C19 issue that's happening everywhere. We don't even want to say the name of it. The disease that everybody's running away from and getting vaccinated. Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah, yeah.
I'm a little
They're
slow.
telling us not to say these words because we'll lose. Yeah. So anyway, the C19, and I said, I really don't see it going away really soon. I think it's going to be here for quite a while, but I don't want to tell you that because I don't want to just depress anybody or make them, and I could be wrong, and I hope I am wrong, but
Yeah.
there's a responsibility that comes with it. So I understand what you
Yeah.
mean. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I started doing this on the channel because I drove my family and friends insane, and I was left alone with my books about politics. They were sick of listening to me because I was ranting and raving all the time. I started out as a 7-year-old learning about Nazis. One of the first books I ever read was the story of the Trapp family singers, The Sound of
Oh,
Music, you
yeah.
know, and
Yes. Yes.
their dad was Austrian nobility. He was a baron, ironically, and he had a lot of negative things to say about the Nazis. He hated them, and it's all described
Right.
in the book. And in
Right.
my childish imagination, they were some kind of monster. I didn't know what they were, but I have this gut thing, and I think that's the psychic thing, you know.
Yeah.
And it blossomed that day, and it merely grew throughout my life to the point where I
Oh.
developed what my family calls mom's little obsession with Hitler and World War II. Read all the
Okay.
diaries, all the letters, all the journals, all the first person sources, which have been hard to find on
Hmm.
the internet, you know. And
Yes.
just I've always known, I have said for decades, and I have eyewitnesses that I've said this, fascism is going to rise again in my lifetime, that this is a threat that is
Right.
going to be a personal threat to all of us, and we need to
Uh-huh.
take it seriously. And when
Yep.
Trump came on television with The Apprentice, I watched that like a religion. And my husband
Hmm.
walked through the room and he'd go, "Are you watching that garbage again?" And I told him, "Look, this man is a psychopath, and he's
Yeah.
dangerous, and you need to watch this because he's a threat." And this is when he was just doing, and when he
Doing
came
that.
down,
Yeah.
when he came down the escalator, I thought, oh, I felt sick because I knew this was it. This was what the thing I've been dreading since I was a child. 60 years later,
Yeah.
here it is,
Right.
and it's global. I mean, Tucker Carlson is in Hungary making a speech in Hungary that is now in the throes of Orban, who was a huge fascist dictator, Eastern
Yeah.
European World War II style dictator. There are many, many countries all around the globe that are being taken over by these authoritarians. So this is me
Yeah. Oh,
ranting
yeah.
and
You could see it.
raving, just ranting
Uh-huh.
about it. And my poor family, they're trying to raise small children. They want to maintain some sense of hope,
Right.
and
Right.
I
I
don't
know.
believe in sticking your head in the sand. I do not believe in that.
No.
So
No, it's what a lot of people have done in the name of, thinking that this is the big savior, but there's never a savior, and there's only people that are out for themselves. It's really creepy. It really is.
Well,
So,
politicians there are 5 professions that attract psychopaths, and politics is one of those
uh-huh.
professions. So, yeah, they're drawn to it. So many of them have, at least to
Right.
some degree, psychopathic tendencies, malignant narcissism, pathological lying, lack of empathy,
Uh-huh.
all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. Makes sense. And you can see it from the past, even the past ones that we find out later that, Churchill did this or what, everybody's got some skeletons in those closets.
Yeah.
So, do you believe in reincarnation?
I do. I'm not a
Okay.
religious person. I like to say I
Right.
served 17 years hard time in Catholic schools and managed to
You poor
get a
thing.
get a
Get out of
reprieve.
there.
Yeah. Well,
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh. Yeah.
got a good education. I give them that. I'm not
Yep. Yep.
exaggerating. We had 60 kids in a class pushing our seats together to share books, and I got a
Oh,
good
wow.
education. So when they
Uh,
whine, when they start
I
whining and
know.
looking for money for the schools, I just, I don't believe that. But that's another argument. Yeah, not a religious person, and I wouldn't even necessarily say I was terribly spiritual. I'm philosophical, but I'm becoming more as I get older, I guess. And I
Hmm.
absolutely believe
Hmm.
in reincarnation. I did a video a few months ago with a doctor from Glendale, from Citrus College in Glendale,
Oh,
and Dr. Bruce
okay.
Solheim. One night, really late, I was listening
Okay.
to a podcast about UFOs, and this particular
Oh,
this particular host just interviews people. They tell their personal narrative experiences, and he gave an
uh-huh.
hour interview about his spiritual guide, which is an alien called Anzar, and he wrote a book about it. He's managed to maintain
Uh-huh.
tenure. They haven't kicked him out yet. And just listening to
Oh,
him,
good.
I thought, I have to talk to this guy. So, against all of
Uh-huh.
my better judgment, I picked up the phone and I called him. And
Good
I
for
will
you.
never forget his response to me when I said, "Listen, I was impressed with your interview, and I'd love to have you on my burgeoning, YouTube channel. You can be my, fourth viewer." And
Uh-huh.
but I'm embarrassed to tell you what the channel is about, because I'm afraid you're going to go screaming for the hills. And he laughed and he said, "What are you talking about? I'm the guy who has conversations with aliens."
That's true. That's true.
Charming and witty and kind and just oozed love. Just the nicest
Wow.
person. I mean, he really
Uh-huh.
made an impact on the people who watched the video. And I recommend his book. It's called Anzar. Oh my God, I forget the
Okay.
entire title, but it's on my videos, and it's Dr. Bruce
Okay.
Solheim.
I'm going to watch it.
SOLHEIM. Yeah.
Okay.
Great book.
Okay.
Great book. Yeah.
Good. So I'm wondering if perhaps some of your fascination with the Hitler information was that you may have had a lifetime just before now, and maybe
that has occurred to me a very long time ago.
Right.
I always get a little uncomfortable talking about this because I think emotions from World War II are still really raw.
Yeah,
and
they are.
So I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, because it's meant with all love.
Oh no! It's just he is a fascinating topic. So
Well, what I was going to say is I have throughout my life had many Jewish friends, and have been thought to be Jewish by them until they found out otherwise, by virtue of my last name, and I won't go into that here. But I worked in a big Jewish hospital, and for several years,
wow.
So I passed as Jewish. but my children.
So you're a mensch.
Yeah, and the cultures. I have a good friend who's Jewish. We talked about this. The cultures are not similar but parallel. They have a lot of confluence. It's really interesting, and I do believe that's very entirely possible, because I have a visceral reaction to a lot of things having to do with that time and place. Yeah,
I understand. Yep, I've had that happen with me around the early part of the 20th century with I don't believe I was on the Titanic, but there's some connection somewhere, because I was always, way before anybody else was fascinated with that, I was. And I also have a huge fascination.
You lived on the coast of Canada.
Maybe I did. Yeah. And then the other one was Victorian age. But, that could have been because I love Victorian stuff. And that was kind of a different England and everything. So I am not Irish. I am also not a granny, because my kids don't have kids, but I am Welsh. So we share the same. Yes, we share the same. That's my heritage anyway. Yeah, but I was born here, but yeah.
Well, the Welsh and the Irish are very close because they share a common enemy. Very close.
Yep. Very close.
Language.
No, my grandfather was a cook aboard ship. He used to go back and forth and be gone all the time. And every time he came home, he got my grandmother pregnant. So the poor thing had 13 kids and died in childbirth with the last one. I know. I didn't meet any of these people. So, I'm
the oldest of 12.
Oh, okay.
Six boys and 6 girls, all of us more dysfunctional than the last. I mean, it's you can't have 12 children and have just, great, the Brady Bunch fairy tale.
Yeah. I know. So you would say that when did you become not necessarily interested in starting a channel, because I can talk about that later, but just anything with spirituality and astrology or whatever it was that first interested you? How long ago was that? You said you read Casey in 8th grade, right?
Yeah, when you're raised Catholic, it's part and parcel of the whole thing. I mean, angels and grace, and I can remember going to sleep as a 4-year-old thinking God always was and always will be, and trying to wrap my head around the concept of eternal, So it's just in the DNA, and being Irish, it's in the culture, very strongly in the culture. My parents were very, very religious, and we were raised with all of that, totally humiliated many times in October and May, 2 months that are dedicated to Mary, when friends would come by the house to have us go play, and we were on our knees in the living room, all of us saying the rosary. So and because religion and the paranormal are, Fatima, Lourdes, Padre Pio, you can't escape it. And it opens the door to the curiosity about those kinds of things.
Sure. And you're not supposed to be interested in it at all, because that's heathens.
Well, there's a fine line. I mean, it's okay to believe in
Yeah.
angels, but not
Right.
really ghosts, unless you're Irish
Right.
Catholic, and then you can believe in ghosts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there was a show that I remember watching. From a series, and it was a long time ago, but it was about the Irish would bring in people to eat the sins of the dead. Did you ever hear of that
Oh,
at
yeah,
funerals?
yeah.
Yeah,
The sin
yeah.
eaters.
They
Yeah,
would
yeah.
have all this food, and if you volunteered, you'd go in and you'd eat all the food in there because you were starving anyway. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah,
But then essentially you took on all the sins of the dead as well as your own sins,
yeah.
and
I
yeah.
don't know. I don't know about that. I've heard of it. I can't give you any
Uh
kind
huh.
of authoritative
No, I know.
explanation,
It's just
except that
interesting. Yeah.
ancient customs come down. Like we still celebrate Halloween, but what's that really about? And
Right.
those things.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And all the pagan traditions, which a lot of people don't realize are pagan, that
Oh
moved
yeah,
into Christianity. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah. Well,
definitely. Well,
essentially, Christianity is yet another solar cult based
right.
on that whole triad of the Virgin and her male comrade,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
then the child born from purity who becomes the savior, who's sacrificed. I mean, that's really common
Uh-huh.
not stereotype, that's not the archetype. It's very, very
Archetype. Yeah.
common.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
throughout all cultures. Really interesting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I end up, I teach English, but I also teach humanities, and we always go back and look at all the different stories, like the ones that started the world and the ones with the big flood. And every one of them has, it may not be exactly the same, but it has those threads in between them from all over that
Yeah.
are very, very similar. So
Yeah.
it's fun to read those. Yeah.
Well, I
That's
think
awesome.
if you took all of the central books, the writings of every culture, every religion, you find this common thread that runs
Oh,
through
yeah.
all of them. And the
Yes.
details might be different and the interpretation is different, but there's so much
Right.
similarity. It's
Yeah.
astounding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
People tend to look at the differences instead of the similarities. And when you do
Yeah.
flip it and look at the similarities, you can see it. It makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Well, when we
Yeah.
when we read that book about Edgar Casey, talking about Atlantis. Now, there's an interesting story that I sort have
Wow.
dismissed over the decades. I read about it when I was really young. Read his stuff. And then
Uh-huh.
kind of dismissed it. And in our culture, there's a lot of derision and ridicule for stories like that.
I
So I
know.
didn't actively pursue hating the idea, but I also wasn't a huge proponent either. It was just, oh yeah, one of
Right.
those stories. But having done this recent reread of his book, then I researched Atlantis, and when you line it up with the archaeology, that's when it gets really, really interesting.
Yep.
And
Yep.
since that book was written in the 60s, archaeological discoveries, especially around South America, have taken an enormous leap and tend to confirm a lot of what Edgar Casey said.
Yes.
So interesting. Yeah.
I told a story on one of the shows, and it was about Edgar Casey looking at auras. He could read them, as you
Yeah.
know from.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
one time he was going somewhere, and he went into a building, and he was going to get on the elevator, and he looked at the people waiting for the elevator, and they had no aura, none, zero. And he decided he didn't want to get in the elevator, and it's a good thing he didn't, because the elevator crashed. It dropped like 60 floors or something. And it was because all of their souls knew beforehand that they were going to die, and they
Yeah. Yeah.
they
I've
got
heard
out of
that.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you
So
know Denise Siegel? Are you familiar with
I've watched
Denise?
her station. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Well, she and I have gotten together a couple of times and covered particular topics, but I
Uh-huh.
told her it always makes me really nervous because she can read auras, and I'm afraid she's going to see a black cloud all around me. I keep telling her, "Don't look at me. Please don't look at me." It's intimidating to be around somebody who has a
Uh-huh.
real
I
gift, you know.
understand. I understand.
I
No,
just know
I've
if I
said
like you or not, you know. It's just
right, right. Yeah, I
she
understand.
really knows.
Uh-huh. But other people have said, why would a psychic go to a psychic? They already know. They should.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
if you have psychic abilities, unless you have some just extraordinary gift, and that's rare, I think
Right.
it's hardest. You're too subjective. It's hardest to know about
Is.
yourself. It's like all my friends' romantic problems, really easy for me to figure out.
Yeah,
And
even
no,
without being psychic. Yeah,
you
I
know,
know.
I have
Hmm.
5 girls, and they're
Oh,
always calling me about
God
their
bless you.
issues. Oh no, it's wonderful. But they'll call me about
Okay.
their issues, and it was hard when they were teenagers. Oh my God!
Yeah, I bet.
But now they're adults, and it's amazing how much smarter I've gotten as they've
Yeah,
gotten
I,
older.
I was told the same thing by my daughter. Yeah, yeah.
But it's always easier to solve their problems than it is
Right.
to really have a clear view of myself.
Correct. No, I
Yeah.
think that's because we're so ingrained by the way we think, and we're not able to step outside and figure it all out. So it's
Well, your
always nice.
problems, the things that happen to you, those are the lessons you're supposed to be learning.
Right.
And if you knew
Right.
how to solve them, you wouldn't need to be learning them. I mean, it's a process.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. But we also don't like it if somebody tells us something we don't want to hear, like that we need to work on this when we already know we need to work on it, but we don't want to anyway. What I'm doing right now is I'm going to have a show on shadow, and I'm doing some research and stuff on it because I've always been fascinated by it. But a lot of it, it's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, to have shadow. It's just part of who we are. It's like the male and the female, or the yin and the yang.
What do you
And
mean? What do you mean by having shadow?
shadow would be your shadow side is that which you probably wouldn't be too proud of letting people know about, let's say. And yet there are some people that live in their shadow 24/7, like, number 45 was a shadow, because he's got all his negative qualities. Jim Jordan lives in his shadow. There are people like that. But, you might not want to just say, oh, yeah, I got really mad and at my kid and I was screaming at her. You wouldn't want to say that to other people. That's your shadow. But there's lots more, and I'm still working on it. So I think it'll be very beneficial. The other thing is we don't, there's a book by Bradshaw, I was telling somebody, and it says in it, if, here we are, we're going to go back and we're going to look at ourselves. Now, if you don't think you are ready to look at yourself that deeply, then you need to stop the book now and come back when you're more willing to, be true to yourself. A lot of people never come back to it, never read it because they don't want to look at
Really?
it. Yeah. It would be the same way if someone was an alcoholic and you said, you're an alcoholic, you need to do something about it. And people don't want to do anything about it, then they're not going to do anything about it. So, yeah.
Well, like I said, I raised 5 girls. There's
Hmm.
nothing negative about myself I haven't heard.
Well,
You
yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, your girls know, but maybe your
Yes.
neighbor doesn't know. You know what I mean? And
Right,
I'm not
right.
saying you're a serial
But
killer
I've
or
heard
anything.
no, no, no. But I've heard the criticism. I've had it all laid
Uh-huh.
bare because they don't have your
Yep.
kids don't hesitate to tell you. At least if
Oh,
you're not
no.
abusive, if they're not afraid of you, they
Right,
don't
right.
hesitate to tell you. Especially
That's
when
right.
they're 13.
Oh, they really tell you.
I
Yes,
know.
that's true.
Yeah.
Especially girls. Yeah,
Yep.
especially girls.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. So you did homeschool all of them, all 5 of them?
We homeschooled all 5 of them through grade school, and we
Okay.
homeschooled the first 3 all the way through high school. The last 2
Oh.
decided they're kind of spread out. So the last
Uh-huh.
2, they're 2 years apart, and then there's a 5-year gap, and then there's a 5-year
Okay.
gap, and then they're 2 years apart, 3 years apart.
Okay.
So they're almost
Yeah.
different generations.
Right.
And
Yeah.
my oldest was 15 when my youngest was born.
Uh-huh.
And the 2 younger ones just were rebels and decided that they didn't want to be homeschooled entirely. So
Right.
we let them go to high school. Biggest
Mm-hmm.
mistake we ever made as parents. They would not
Yeah.
agree. They wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
agree, but I feel that
Right.
way. And we did not homeschool out of religious reasons. We didn't
Right. Right.
homeschool to protect them from anything, we homeschooled because we felt the schools were too conservative and we wanted our children to challenge authority. And
Yes.
you just can't do that within the construct of the public school system. And so
Oh,
that was the
you're
only
right.
option. Yeah. Yeah.
So my daughter was a senior in high school, and she missed the bus, and the ride that she would back up that didn't come. So she called me at work, and she said, "I'm going to walk over to school," which is about 2 miles, because I missed the bus. And I said, "Why don't you just stay home? You're no big deal." "Oh no, I need to go to school." So I said, "All right." So she gets to school, and the vice principal's office calls me and says, "Your daughter came in late." I said, "Yes, she did." I said, "That was her decision to even come in." And they said, "Well, she's going to get a detention." I said, "She's a senior. She's never had a detention. And you're telling me you're going to give her a detention for coming in when she missed the bus?" "Yes, this is the way the school works." I said, "What are you, the Gestapo?" I was so angry. Oh my God. I was bullshit. I was. And I let him have it. I did. But I was in Texas at the time, and Texas has a very bad system anyway.
Yeah.
And they even make you pledge allegiance to the state of Texas flag in Texas. And I said, "No, they're not going to pay. My kid isn't going to pledge allegiance to the flag of Texas. No." But they do, yeah, they do. My son, I told the teacher, my son was in the 4th grade. I said, "My son's not going to be participating in that Pledge of Allegiance, for the American flag." "Okay." And they said, "Well, then he just has to be a nice boy and stand quietly." And I said, "That's fine, he will, but don't make him. He doesn't have to do it. Doesn't have allegiance to a state." Yeah, so
I don't have allegiance to a flag.
I don't blame you. I consider myself to be a global citizen. That's what I call
Well,
myself. Yeah.
a naturalized citizen because I was born in Ireland, and
Okay.
I didn't become an American citizen until I was in my 40s, and I could see the writing on the wall, and I realized that if I didn't hurry up and get my citizenship, it was going to become ugly, and I would need to have my citizenship, which is
Right.
why I did it. But I always had problems doing it because you have to take an oath, and I
Right.
take oaths seriously.
I
And
understand.
the oath that you take disavows all allegiance to any other place or people. But
Right.
that's my family, you know.
Sure,
it
of
was
course.
it was
Yeah.
a hard decision, to I feel fully
Uh-huh.
committed to it because I took the oath. So when
Uh-huh.
people start challenging the Constitution, I take it personally.
Uh-huh. Yep. I don't blame you. Because you stepped up, and yeah. And
Exactly.
nobody that's an American citizen born here would be able to pass that citizenship test for the most part, because there's so many
Well,
questions that they would know how to answer.
in theory, I studied for that thing like I was going to take the bar exam,
I
and
bet you did.
I was
Yeah.
raised in the United States. I took American history for a year. I took civics for a year. I had a
Yeah.
fully American education. I was so concerned about that test. You know what they asked me? Because it's an oral test. They asked
Oh,
me how many stars were on the flag.
okay.
And I thought they're kidding, right? This is a
Yeah.
test to see how I react. This is not, no, they didn't. It wasn't. Maybe they could tell from my accent that there, I'm white. That's why. I know that's why. If you come from Ireland, you get it the easy test. If you come from Africa, you get the test that talks to you about constitutional law. I'm convinced of it. It's not a fair assessment. Everybody gets the same handbook to study, and it's very much like a civics class, but you also have to know who your local representative is and who your senators and your governor, their first name. You have to know their names and all that stuff. But I just don't think that it's completely equitable. And I would hate to be a person attempting to get U.S. citizenship today. Oh, and God forbid that you're somebody coming from a war-torn country or a poverty-stricken country. You're trying to escape famine or something like that, and you're appealing for what's it called? Refugee status nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Horrendous, really horrendous.
I know.
Yeah.
It's gotten worse and worse. Sorry, I had to exit stage left for a few minutes.
Okay.
Andrea, you had written that shadow self with the 12-step program defines it as character defects. Further, shadow is defined as ineffective coping mechanisms. Yeah, that's some of it, and some of it also is that, you know, it is who we are. It's a part of who we are, and we'll look at some of the Jungian ideals and so forth when we're talking about it. But
well, you know, in the Catholic religion, they have the sacrament of confession. And I don't know, it's, you know, been a long time since I've confessed anything. But when I was a child, you went into a little booth, kind of like a photo booth, you know?
Yeah.
And the priest was in another, like the next section with a grating. So you really couldn't see each other. It was dark. And the format of the whole ritual was you told the priest all the bad things that you had done since the last time you'd gone to confession.
Right.
And the priest would listen to you talking about, you know, I hit my brother. And
right.
Kind of thing,
I said shit. Yeah.
Oh, I know. Not me. Definitely not me. I was a good girl. And then gave you absolution and a penance. And so in the Catholic Church, that sense of personal inventory, self-examination is it's expected, and it's done on a regular basis, and you're supposed to do it at least once a year. I think sometime before Easter, you're like Holy Week, between the beginning of Lent, Ash Wednesday, and Easter. I could be wrong about that. I'm probably going to hell, but I know you do have at least once a year you're supposed to go and make a confession and be absolved, and the idea being confession is good for the soul. My first confession, I was so confused because you're 7 years old, and there's this little ritual prayer, bless me, Father, for I've sinned. It has been X amount of time since my last confession, and these are my sins. And then you say, you know, I don't know, I kicked the dog. I don't know, whatever you do when you're 7 years old. Next week, the second time I'd been to confession, I misunderstood, and I thought you were supposed to say, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been X number of weeks since my first confession. So week 2, it was not so much of a problem. Week 3, not so much of a problem because we were regular churchgoers. But after about 2 months, I lost track of how many weeks it was. I had to lie. I had to lie to the priest in the confessional and make up a number of weeks since the last time I'd been to confession, which is not an auspicious start to your path down the road to heaven, I guess. Oh my goodness. And I can't see any questions. I have no, what's it called? Feed. So I don't have any questions. I could do a tarot reading about something. Let's see. What could I do a tarot reading about? You just saved me. I was trying to think of something to read the cards about. I was about to break out into a song. I know a few Broadway songs.
There we go. That's right.
You would have lost 90% of your subscribers if I sang. I promise.
I doubt it. Wow. Well, I wonder, we've only got a few minutes left anyway, and if this is just going to keep happening, it's depressing. I'm really sorry that it's happening, because I feel like this is a great conversation we're having, and I'm having a great time.
I'll have you come on mine.
Okay,
my internet connection is worse.
Okay. But I don't know, did anybody want her to read something quickly on any topic? You know, I don't want you to have 15 different questions, but I just wonder, especially if you've watched her channel, And if you haven't, please go watch her channel because
Oh,
I
thank
want
you.
you to see. And if you don't want to sit and watch the whole thing, please check the one on trolls because that was something. I mean, it was like what a fabulous idea that was. Not that any of the other ones aren't just as good, but I just thought that was great. So
Well, it
I don't know.
started out very much being a political channel.
Right.
And
Okay.
I don't know where I got the idea to combine my political reading and my political interests, my outrage with the
Yeah.
tarot cards. But then it's morphed into a regular discussion of books as well.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yes. Well, that's good because see, I
I think she was going to say she liked that. So I'll just talk about it while we're waiting for her to come back. I happened to mention a book I liked, and somebody in the comments asked me about it. So asked me to do a review of it, and I did. And then that morphed into me picking topics that I was particularly interested in. I'll give you an example. Really interested in abnormal psychology and have read a lot of books about psychopathy. So I read several books and put together sort of like a term paper on
okay.
psychopathy and presented it. And that was really
Right.
popular. Then I did seven videos on cults and mind control and MAGA as a cult. And there's a book called The Cult of Trump by Dr.
Yes.
Steve Hassan. And that was sort of the central book that I used. He talks a lot about the fundamentalist groups that are running this country,
Right.
things like, and the Federalist Society,
Yeah.
and what makes a person subject to mind control more than other people, and how
Mm-hmm.
patriarchal religious upbringing tends to lead you down that path. And so 7 videos on that, very, very popular. And I was kind of fresh out of ideas, and I said, if you guys suggest something and it appeals to me, I'll do a deep dive, but I'm not going to do a deep dive just because you ask. It has to be something I like. So 100%
I understand. Yeah.
100% of the people who responded, all 6 people who responded, asked me to do a series on UFOs and aliens. So for a couple
There
of
you
months
go.
there, that's all we did. Now I'm taking a tiny break just because not everybody is into it. 99%
Right.
are, but still, I want to give everybody something.
Right.
And I've done this
Something else.
book.
Yeah.
Just finished
Hmm.
that really good book, I Alone Can Fix It.
Oh, yes. Was it
Really a
good?
good
It was
book.
good? Yeah.
Really good. And
Okay.
their first book, A Very Stable Genius, is much
Yes, I read
shorter.
that one.
Hilarious.
Yep.
Hilarious.
It is.
I was
Yeah.
thinking that this other book was going to be light entertainment for everybody, a little break, and oh my God, not at all. Not
Yeah,
at
I know.
all.
I know.
But
Yeah.
really good, really good. So now I'm
Wow.
kind of trying to I'm doing a book, preparing it, but it's going to be a couple of weeks because it's a real in-depth book. And
Okay.
it's a topic really close to my heart. I usually keep it a secret as a surprise.
That's fine. Yeah.
So I'm looking for something for this weekend that I can read in 3 days and take notes on. So it's lighthearted.
Okay.
And topical.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am reading a book that fits the bill, but it doesn't lend itself. I'm reading a book by a student.
Oh, I get you.
Yeah, a guy who went to Brown, and Brown University has a
Yep.
study abroad. They do a semester abroad, and he decided that instead of going to a foreign country.
Oh, now it's her turn to be gone. And she'll be back. What an interesting woman she is. I hope everybody's enjoying this. And I want to say that I'm sorry about yesterday, that I had to can't reschedule my class, my thing with the other with Joanna. So anyway, all right, good. I'm glad she's back. Go ahead.
Okay,
Finish what you were saying.
He went to Brown. They took a break to study abroad. He decided that instead of going to a foreign country, he would go to Liberty University, Jerry Falwell's fundamentalist. And it is the best book. And he comes out of it. He's not making fun of people. He's not
Right.
ridiculing people's religious beliefs. He's got a great sense of humor, and it's
Oh.
so interesting. But it's hard to do. A lot of the humor is in the conversations. I don't want to read the whole book
Yeah.
out, you know. Yeah.
No. Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
you. Yeah. You know, it's nice to be conversational about it. And if you read an excerpt, yes, but not the whole thing. Doesn't want to
Right.
be an excerpt. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
it's really a
That's
good
great.
book. Really a good book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, you're very popular, and everybody just adores you, including myself. And
Thank
I
you
just
so
want
much.
you. How long did you've been here longer than me? I think I came in November. Were you here like a year
Yeah.
ago or something?
No. I think I started probably about 6 to 8 months ago. Maybe I started in
Okay,
February. Maybe I can't remember. You're expecting far too much of me to remember yesterday. I certainly can't remember.
I understand. That's
Yeah,
okay.
but
That's okay.
about 7
Yeah,
months. Let's just
but
pretend 7 months ago. Yeah, roughly.
yeah, good. Well, then, yeah, you and I are about the same then, actually. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And it sounds like you sort of did the same thing
Yeah.
and you're flourishing and I'm doing well
Thank you.
too. So it's
Good
great.
for
It's
you.
nice to see. It really is.
Well, I
Yeah,
felt
it's a great
motivated.
community.
I felt very
Yeah,
drawn to do it because I think this information doesn't get heard enough. And I felt like if it was
correct.
heard by one person, I would have done what I needed to
Yeah,
do. So there we
yep,
go. Yeah.
yep. No, it's a very big service and for other people and brings them new information and just a way of looking
Yeah.
at something differently. And that's
Yeah.
always a pleasure.
Yeah.
So thank you, madam. I really enjoyed it. I'm sorry we had so many technological issues,
Uh,
but
I'm used to it.
between
It's
you and
fine.
I, oh well.
Totally used to the technical problems. It's
Yeah,
okay. It's okay.
absolutely.
I
And
just
thank
wanted to
everybody
thank
for,
you for having me
oh,
on. I
sure.
appreciate the invitation. That was really nice of you. I had a very good time. It was
Yes.
fun.
Oh, it was really fun. And I will afterwards post a link to your channel. And everybody
Thank
go over
you.
and like and sign up and you really won't regret it
Thank
because
you.
it's really wonderful. Thank
And
you.
in a
All
better
right.
world, I'd post a link to your channel, but I don't know how. So
It's okay. It's okay. I
I'll
understand
mention it.
completely. Okay, good. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Bye